Welcome to Friday. And
Hey.
it's been 2 weeks now since we've begun our journey with our daily devotions about the birth of Jesus. And we spent some time with Mary. How incredible was that story in Luke chapter 1? Yesterday we began looking at Joseph's perspective, and that was through the Gospel of Matthew.
That's right.
Matthew had as you'll see today, particular nuance to the story, but very much from Joseph's point of view for two reasons. First off, there was the prophecy that Jesus himself would be from the line of David, and that came through the male. So because that was a very Jewish promise, the story is told somewhat from Joseph's perspective, and we talked about that. And we also talked about how Joseph was quite shocked, but in his desire to obey God's law, but also to show love and compassion to his wife.
Yeah, exactly.
We saw his actions, but it would have been still difficult. So
sure.
we're going to continue on with the story, see what happens to Joseph.
So we're looking at Matthew chapter 1, verses 22 to 25.
Thanks, Joel.
All this took place to fulfill
Yep.
what the Lord had said through the prophet.
Yep.
The virgin will conceive and give birth to a son, and they will call him Emmanuel, which means God with us.
Yeah.
When Joseph woke up, he did what the angel of the Lord had commanded him and took Mary home as his wife,
Yep.
but he did not consummate their marriage
No.
until she gave birth to a son.
Yep.
And he gave him the name Jesus.
Awesome.
There's an element I want to touch on really quickly here. So it says,
Take as long as you like, Joel.
fulfill
As long as
what
it's
the
not-
Lord had said through the prophet.
Yep.
So we'll flick on an image here
Yep.
onto the screen. So this is a bit of a diagram of the interconnection between the Old Testament and the New Testament. Now, as we sort of know, there's, particularly through this, prophets sort of foretold the birth of Jesus.
No doubt
and
about
I
that.
believe personally that was very important for that to, I guess, come into fruition. And
Well, for two reasons,
Yeah.
Joel. Remember, every single person who was the original Christians were Jews. And if there was no continuity between what God was doing before Jesus, there was no way that Christian community would have taken it seriously.
Yeah. And what I love about this diagram too, it just shows that Scripture can't be, like, this book isn't made up. There's so much interconnection throughout Scripture that one person can't just make it up and
So this
randomly.
These individual lines are connecting one part to the other.
Yes,
And so you can
basically.
see the complexity.
Yes.
If you were to take every single prophecy from the Old Testament to the New and see how they work backwards and forwards.
So within that, there would be this connection here from Matthew 1 back to the prophet.
Isaiah chapter 7.
Yes, who said, Isaiah chapter 7.
And Isaiah chapter
Telling
7 absolutely speaks very clearly that this is a sign.
Yes, yeah.
And makes it very clear, just like many other things, like Jesus would be born, right, in Bethlehem.
Yes.
Even though that's not where he grew up. And so there were plenty of Old Testament things that were fulfilled exactly. But we see the obedience of Joseph.
Yes.
Even though it would have been hard for him, you can see that he was asked to do something that would be extremely difficult for him.
Yes,
it's
sure.
going to change his life. It's going to change how people think about him. It will certainly put pressure on him in all sorts of different ways. And he probably didn't really understand it. And he certainly probably didn't want to do it initially. And yet he was obedient to what God asked him. Now, we know the ending of the story, that he was blessed amazingly. And he's known throughout history as Joseph, right? The father of Jesus. So there's no way he could have known that in the beginning.
Exactly.
But he was called to obey God even though that was difficult.
And he obeyed. He got up, he woke up.
Yep.
He did what the angel of the Lord commanded him and took
Indeed.
Mary home to be his wife.
Awesome.
So the question
Is?
for today. Well, we'll fade over to a screen, and the question will be
question is
right
about-
there for you. So
about-
we will
The question is about us being obedient when it's difficult.
be obedient when it's difficult.
So
There you go.
we will meditate on that question, and we will see you on Monday.
See you then.